Fleekla was a xenologist of some repute. He'd spent centuries cataloging and experimenting on strange and wonderful species. He'd studied the void angels of the Tarantula Nebula, who breathed its diffuse gases, and grew for millennia beyond counting to reach the size of small planets. He'd studied the Marinlock people, smallest of all sapients, who burrowed beneath the surface of their dwarf planet to build amazing crystal cities in the ice. He'd made such a name for himself that he was given his own one-man research vessel and a great deal of discretion in choosing what to research and where to do it. He'd chosen an out-of-the-way system near the inner rim of the Orion Cygnus arm, a main sequence star, yellow, hydrogen burning. A few millennia earlier, a standard automated exploration probe had cataloged the system. The third planet out had an abundance of life and liquid water. No attempt had been made to catalog the life, but no obvious signs of advanced technology were present. That didn't bother Fleekla. He didn't need something advanced. He just wanted something new. Fleekla's mind dropped into the deep familiar focus that would create a gateway, and his ship slipped through it. It seemed the residents of the third planet had been making some progress since the probe's visit. There were satellites, even some small manned structures in orbit. Nothing to be concerned about, but that species would probably be the best candidate for his experiments. He scanned the planet, selecting a subject that would not be missed in an area with low population density. Fleekla's mind again reached out to form a gateway, this time just a small one. The subject fell unceremoniously into a heap in the test chamber. It was an ape, bipedal, mostly hairless. It did have long black hair on the top of its head, though. 2 forward-facing eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth, 2 mammary glands, slender build. All of its features were oriented directly forward, more or less, likely a predator. Nothing particularly unusual about it, except for the lack of hair. That was a bit of an anomaly for a mammal, something to pursue later. The subject stood and began making some noises, possibly an auditory communication method, suggesting low or no psionic capability. It moved around the room, investigating the smooth walls. Fleekla gave a mental shrug, beginning the scan. The subject seemed to have some sort of reaction to the scanner beam, screaming and holding its head. That was unusual. The scan results were even more unusual. The subject was a bit of a mess, biologically speaking. Vestigial organs, junk DNA, poor genetic maintenance systems. Genetic malfunction was likely a leading cause of death for the poor species, but it also had incredible genetic and neural plasticity. It would be an ideal candidate to test the new mutagen Fleekla had recently invented. Technically, testing on non-consenting sapients was illegal, but nobody knew he was here, nor did they know sapiens lived in the system at all. He doubted he'd be found out, and the opportunity was too good to pass up. He released the mutagen in gaseous form into the test chamber. The subject passed out, but seemed otherwise unchanged. For 2 days, Fleekla observed the subject, and for 2 days it did nothing but lay there. No mutation. What had gone wrong? He'd have to go back to the drawing board on the mutagen. He decided to return the subject to its natural environment, after implanting a tracker, of course. No sense keeping it around. He didn't know what it ate or what other needs it might have. Easier to let it fend for itself than retrieve it if he had further use for it. Jennifer had the mother of all hangovers. She didn't remember drinking, but she felt like she'd drunk enough to last a whole fraternity, an entire weekend. The only thing she could remember was a really strange dream. Some kind of dark purple energy pulling her out of her bed, dropping her into a sterile white room with smooth walls. Then pain, then nothing. Rodney would have told her it was alien abduction, but he thought the Earth was flat, so no reason to give him much credit. How he could believe in a flat Earth and aliens was beyond her. Besides, she was pretty sure she hadn't been anally probed. Thank fuck for small favors. As her head cleared, the hunger pains hit like a knife to her gut. She groaned, forcing herself to her feet. She made a beeline for the kitchen. The only thing in the fridge was 2-day-old calamari. Wait, was it still 2-day-old? It was night out. How long had she slept? Either way, the calamari didn't seem very appetizing. Rodney had added it to their takeout order as a joke. Fuckhead. Still, it was food. She gave it a tentative sniff, then took a bite. Holy fuck, where had calamari been her whole life? Screw how it looked. It was the best thing she had ever tasted. She tipped up the takeout box and used her hand to force the contents into her mouth until she'd swallowed the lot of it. She was still so hungry. One of the disadvantages of living outside of town was that nobody wanted to deliver to you. The clock said 8 p.m. She could make it to town before the Egyptian place closed. She called ahead so they'd have her order waiting. Yeah, order to pick up. 10 orders of the crispy fried calamari. Yes, 10. Jennifer. Credit card. Okay, see you then. Clothes, they might not give you delicious calamari if you're not wearing clothes. Jennifer returned to her bedroom, surveying her impressive clothing storage system. Clean clothes basket, dirty clothes pile on the floor. She threw on what was left in the basket, but found no pants. She sniffed the jeans in the dirty clothes pile. Still good. On they go. Hey, the car keys were in the jeans pocket. Bonus time saver. It was a starry night, no clouds, full moon. Easy to see on the long, straight road into town. Jennifer drove like she had somewhere to be, 20 over the speed limit. There wasn't anywhere for the cops to hide out here, even at night. By the time she reached the restaurant, Jennifer felt hungrier than when she'd woken up. It was a good thing she'd asked for 10 orders. She smacked, face first, into the door. It says pull, idiot. Jennifer was too hungry to care about whoever had spoken. She pulled the door open and sped to the register. Takeout order for Jennifer. You look terrible. The clerk's eyes seemed a bit wider than they ought to be. Thanks, I try. No, I mean, you look really horrible. What's wrong with you? Hard living. My order? Right. Good timing, it just came up. That will be $149.90. Fuck, really? It is 10 orders. Right. Jennifer handed over her credit card. The calamari smelled so good. She picked up a box, ripped off the lid, held it to her face, and shoveled the contents down in seconds. The clerk was just staring at her. As she tore into the next box, he seemed to decide to just run the credit card. She accepted it back with the receipt. She scooped up the precious 8 remaining boxes and made a dash for her car. Jennifer sat in the front seat, shoving calamari into her face, a box at a time, until they were all empty. She washed it down with a flat 2-day-old soda that had been sitting in the car. The hunger had subsided, and she felt bliss. As she drove home, it crept back up on her. How could she already be hungry again? What the actual fuck was going on with her? She pulled over to the side of the road and picked up her cell phone. Pick up Rodney, you brain-damaged shit-weasel. Jennifer? Rodney, can you meet me at my house? I'm on my way back there. Something weird is going on. I don't feel right. Go to the hospital? You know I don't have insurance, fuckstain. Are you going to help or not? Fine. See you in 20. By the time she got home, Jennifer was starving. But Rodney would be there soon. He was an idiot. But he'd give you his left kidney if you needed it. She just had to hold on until he arrived. The door swung open. Hot Rod has arrived. Hide your daughters and... Holy fuck, what the shit? What have you done with Jennifer, you monster? Rodney brought his fists up, like he expected to be in a boxing match. Rodney, you twat waffle, what are you on about? Jen, is that you? Who the fuck else would it be? It was at this point that Jennifer recalled the interaction with the cashier at the restaurant. She'd been too hungry to pay it much mind, but the man had seemed quite concerned about her appearance. Have you looked in the mirror lately? Jennifer retreated to her bedroom, found the light switch, then moved towards her full body mirror. Oh, her skin was a grayish-greenish hue and it looked slimy. Her eyes were solid black, no sclera visible at all. Her nose seemed to be retreating into her face. The inside of her arms had little suction cups. She took off her jeans and found little suction cups on the inside of her legs, too. Under her shirt, she found little nubs, like baby limbs, sprouting, a few on each side. Jennifer wasn't the type to scream or cry about her problems. She was more of the punch your problems in the face sort. But she was having trouble figuring out who or what to punch in this situation. She returned to Rodney. You and your fucking calamari. What? Jennifer proceeded to tell him everything. I'm not saying it's Aylin's, but it's Aylin's. You know what, Rodney? I'm starting to think you might be right. Rodney being right about something would be one for the record books. He smelled good, and... Wait, what was she thinking? God, she was so hungry, and Rodney was right there, just... Oh, fuck. Don't eat Rodney. I gotta leave. I can't be here. Now Jennifer was starting to panic. By all rights, she should have been panicked for quite a while, but her life up to then had given her a fairly high tolerance for absolute bullshit happening to her. Come on, Jen. I just got here. Let's figure this alien shit out. Jennifer ran for the door. Can't stay, don't eat Rodney, don't eat Rodney. Rodney followed her out. Where are you going, Jen? You left your keys. She bolted straight towards the neighbor's farm. She could hear him yelling something from behind her, but couldn't make out what he was saying. It didn't matter. She just needed to get as far away from him as possible. Don't eat Rodney? As she ran, she realized her shoes had fallen off. She looked down, but didn't find feet. She was half slithering, half running, on two long tentacles. It didn't matter. It was working. She was fast. A new smell came to her. Food. Her already remarkable pace quickened, and it came into view. A cow. No moral problems there. Just a cow. She launched herself at high speed, landing on its back. The cow made a distressed sound as her tentacles wrapped around its body, but when her beak pushed deep into its neck, the sound quieted to a gurgle. Her beak? She had a beak now. It didn't matter. She began to gorge herself on the cow. After eating all of the meat, she began to eat the bones. She was still so hungry. The last remaining bit was the head. She forced the whole thing down. Flesh, bone, brain. Something strange happened just then. Flashes of images, memories. Eating grass, running, eating grass. Some wallowing, more eating grass. Really a lot of eating grass. Fuck no. Fuck all of that. There was no way she was going to become a cow. She forced the images out of her mind, and it seemed to work. Small mercies. Jennifer was starting to think that her lack of insurance was not such an obstacle to going to the hospital after all. Should she go back home and get Rodney to drive her? She was still so hungry. No, don't eat Rodney. Can't be near him. She'd have to go by foot, or by tentacle. It was a ways into town, but she did seem to be rather fast. Tentacle locomotion shouldn't really be that effective on land. Should it? Doesn't matter, it seemed to work. There were lots of farms between her house and town as well. Cattle, horses, pigs. She figured she could probably keep her hunger under control. So Jennifer ran, slithered, towards town. When she came upon an animal, she ate it. As she ate, she grew. Eventually, she was swallowing cattle in a few bites each. She hadn't stopped at 8 tentacles. She had more than a dozen now, but 2 were longer and sturdier to support her locomotion. She had too many eyes, too, in different places around her body. She was pretty sure a squid had 8 tentacles and 2 eyes. So what was that about? She even had eyes on some of her tentacles. As Jennifer entered the outskirts of town, it was fairly late in the evening. She hoped that meant there would be less people about, but it was Friday. She hadn't really been keeping track of how many cows she ate, but by this point she was enormous. Her 2 larger tentacles were nearly 60 meters long, and even though most of their length was on the ground as she ran, she was still high enough in the air to look down on the tops of most of the buildings. Going unnoticed was not going to really work. On the plus side, over the tops of the buildings, she could see the hospital. It wasn't that far. Jennifer slithered from street to street, watching the tiny little people run screaming down alleyways or indoors. She hadn't had a cow in a while and was getting hungry, but she figured she could make it. Bang! Ow! What the fuck? That stings. Jennifer spotted a police officer in the road in front of her. From his point of view, she supposed she did look like a bit of a threat to the public, even though she'd been careful to cause a minimum of property damage as she moved through town. She just needed to tell him she wasn't dangerous. Be not afraid, is what she had meant to say, but what came out of her beak was more of a shrill screeching sound. It did not have the desired effect. That really hurt. Reflexively, Jennifer grabbed him up with a tentacle, dropped him in her beak, and swallowed. Oops, shit, fuck. That was self-defense, right? Suddenly, the cop's memories began to flood her mind. His name was George. She swam in the memories. Childhood games, fights with parents, getting mocked by some asshole on the street, shooting that asshole and planting a gun on him. Suddenly, Jennifer didn't feel quite so bad about eating the guy. She also really didn't want his memories, so she tried again to force them out. It seemed to work. Was she a murderer now? No. But was going to the hospital still a good idea? She couldn't communicate with them, and the hunger was back with a vengeance. There were plenty more farms with plenty more livestock and a lot fewer humans. Jennifer turned back the way she'd come. Fleekla had figured it out. The mutagen required a sort of jumpstart to get going. An infusion of foreign DNA would provide an initial template for the transformation. The mutagen wouldn't just turn one creature into another, though. That was easy. No, it would still do. As he designed, creating new traits, creating variations on existing traits, everything was still going to work just as he'd planned. Patting himself on the back for his genius, Fleekla reached out to the tracking device on the planet's surface, concentrated, and opened the gateway that would return his test subject to him. When he saw it arrive, he stared in awe. Jennifer had just eaten another herd of cattle when she felt a tingling. One of her many eyes found the dark purple energy just as she was pulled through the gateway. This room again, this white, featureless room. But it was much smaller. No, she was much larger. It could barely contain her mass of writhing tentacles. This would not do at all. Jennifer lunged at the wall with all her strength, her beak piercing a deep hole through it. She pulled back and sent some tentacles through the hole, some with eyes. She found a very surprised-looking alien. She gave a mental shrug. This was the culprit. She wouldn't feel at all bad about what came next. Her tentacles seized the thing, pulling it, kicking and screaming through the hole in the wall. Then she swallowed it whole. This time she didn't fight as the change came. The memories of the alien, of Fleekla, passed over her like waves. He was old, hundreds of years of memories. Childhood, on his home planet of Vasak, studying at all the best schools, advanced training as a xenologist, research, so much research on so many fascinating species. Psionic abilities. That purple shit wasn't a technology, at least not the kind humans used. There were structures in the alien's body and brain that made that possible, and more. She could feel the structures forming within her own body as she chomped down on another piece of wall. It wasn't as good as beef, but it wasn't bad. By the time she'd incorporated all of Fleekla's memories, she had eaten most of the interior structure of the ship, leaving only the hull to protect her from the void outside. Jennifer focused her mind in a way that was new for her, but felt familiar because of the memories. She reached out and the purple energy began to swirl into a gateway. She couldn't see what was on the other side, but she knew it was home. She wanted so badly to go through it. But what would await her there? Fleekla's memories had told her what happened to her, but the bastard hadn't invented a way to reverse the process. She was his first time testing the damned mutagen. Nobody on Earth would be able to help her. She was sure of that. But that bastard had broken his own people's laws by conducting this experiment. Maybe they'd be sympathetic. Maybe they could figure out a way to help her. Jennifer focused again, a new gateway to a world far away. It was Tlikla's birthday. She was 6 years old today. Her parents had taken her to the park to play with the little juknaks at the pond. Her mom told her it was mean to chase them, so she just tossed them food and watched them eat it. Suddenly, the entire sky opened up. A purple and black hole swallowed the sun and the clouds. From that abyss, tentacles emerged. Impossibly long, disturbingly numerous tentacles. They almost seemed to be peeling apart the sky to force their way into the world. An enormous beak followed, and the eyes, far too many eyes. Tlikla screamed.